Well, salutations, fellow idiots. I had this shit loaded up for us, and apparently we are in the wrong brand, or the video just did not come through in the right brand. So we're we're supposed to have a trailer here for you, but we don't at the moment because it's over here. So we're gonna run that right now and then switch back to the full moon shit. Apologies, little technical hiccup here. Meridian.
I see things, and I feel things that I can't explain.
It's a superstition, a ghost story. Every old castle has one.
Once again, salutations, fellow idiots. Welcome back to another episode of that Nocturnal Emissions, baby. Today we're going to be talking, obviously, about Meridian. I am joined once again by Mason Egan, the good buddy. You know, we've been doing this full moon stuff for 2 whole weeks now, and here's to the, well, at least the next 2 weeks. We're going to keep this going. Happy to have you back here, bud. You excited to talk about Meridian tonight?
Yeah. Totally.
I could hear the enthusiasm dripping from your veins. David Streggy from Inside Movies Galore and Delusions of Grandeur is also joining us over here tonight to talk about this sexy wolfy action. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing okay. Yourself?
Oh, not too bad. We were talking before we went on air about what full moon discussions we have done in the past. It turns out one time we did do a discussion for Dark Angel over on Delusions of Grandeur. So if you want some bonus full moon content, go check that out. It's a good film. I think we did a pretty good review on it. Tonight, we're talking about a sexy, weird, sort of Euro horror influenced flick that Full Moon did directly following Puppet Master, which was the film that, you know, for all intents and purposes, launched Full Moon as a brand. You know, we kind of talked briefly in our last episode about how we will eventually circle back around to the Charlie Band production days and the Empire stuff. What's it, Cult Video or whatever, Urban whatever, all the different sub-labels of Full Moon will get covered at some point. But this initial series is just focusing on those mainline films when they relaunched from Empire as Full Moon. And this is a very odd follow-up to Puppet Master, you know? I think there's probably some argument to be made that this was probably being conceived and put together before Puppet Master was around or while it was like simultaneously. So the whole vision of what Full Moon would be isn't necessarily concrete at this point. Obviously, we started out with Puppet Master, which is very much the type of shit that Full Moon would become known for. And then we go into more of an erotic, supernatural, gothic horror ghost story with Meridian, which isn't necessarily Full Moon's main brand of stuff, but it is stuff that they've dabbled in and expanded into in their various more erotic lines of films. What's your history with Meridian, Mason? When did you see it for the first time? Kind of, you know, all that good stuff, general first impressions of it.
So when I kind of first witnessed Meridian, that was kind of when I was starting in the lineup. I already started to know like a lot of other Full Moon films beforehand that actually came out after it, like Demonic Toys, Dollman, all that. Most I was kind of going along lines of just trying to watching films kind of me like after Puppet Master. Like I before that, I watched Shadow Zone, which we'll get to next week. And then I kind of got a copy of Meridian. Meridian kind of saw a trailer for it, like in one of the Blood Dolls DVD. Thought it was kind of interesting for how it's sort of like erotic romance monster story. Just the whole similarities between the whole Beauty and the Beast. The hell of it kind of got me in. So I kind of watched it. It was in a way sort of an interesting sort of slow dark atmosphere, which in a way does differ from what we kind of see from other full moon features, but still in a way kind of similar. But so
Yeah, there's not too many slow burn horror films in Full Moon's library. And even though Meridian would technically be considered one, they still find ways to throw like Wolfman sex in there to make it like less slow burn than it would be otherwise. But it's very unique in that. Dave, what about you? What's your sort of history with Meridian? Is it one you watched back in the day? Did you find out about it later? How did that kind of go for you?
This is actually one of the earliest releases of Full Moon that I didn't realize it was Full Moon at the time. But once I got more into like learning what films came from the umbrella of the Full Moon universe, then it was like, oh, okay. But this one definitely is on the sexier end of the Full Moon, so it's kind of more towards the softcore porn end of the era of. I mean, he still does them, but not as much anymore. Because there's like three branches of the Full Moon. There was Moonbeam, if I remember correctly. That was more for
Yeah,
children.
you got Full Moon, you got Moonbeam,
Family.
which is like for kids, and then you had Surrender Cinema, or you
Correct.
still do,
Surrender Cinema.
which is for definitely not kids. And if you want to get technical, there's also been urban or big city entertainment, which is where they were doing a lot of their urban horror films, which innocently enough in the early 2000s just meant horror movies with mostly
Yeah,
black
this
people
one
in the cast.
this one skates the line of Surrender Cinema, but just
It's
like
on the edge of it, yeah.
just like that vampire one, Embrace of the Vampire with Nev Campbell or what was it, Alyssa Milano.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that one skated the boundaries of sexy end of things. So
yeah, it's not quite explicit enough to call it full on softcore, but it's explicit enough that like the word erotic has to be included in the description of the film.
Correct.
And
now,
it's definitely good.
Sherilyn Fenn, I know from some other. I think I remember her being in a version of The Taming of the Shrew.
Maybe I always remember her from Twin Peaks.
But I remember
Twin Peaks, yeah.
But yeah, my history with this one, I like the fact that it has something to do with a carnival of freaks that come out of this mystical like mouth of and it kind of ends with them like disappearing into like this whole mythological like
they go back to
it's almost
Narnia basically.
Yeah, basically, and it makes it feel like a sort of a fairy tale,
a really fucked up fairy tale with some sweet jugs in it.
Right?
That's really what you want at the end of the day. I don't have any shame in admitting that I love the erotic elements of this film, and I actually do like quite a few of the Surrender Cinema movies that I've seen. I haven't seen a lot of them yet, but I own a lot of them that I plan on getting through. There's nothing wrong with enjoying nice nude women, okay? And there's plenty of that to be beheld in this movie. A lot gets made about Sherilyn Fenn, but I think Charlie Spradling is really the star of the show, in my opinion. We'll get to that as we break down the characters, but Meridian is not one that I have really a history with outside of the last 3 years. It was one that I never rented as a kid for probably obvious reasons. They didn't just have this one out on the shelf at my local mom and pop's video store. Even though they had plenty of other tawdry, twisted shit. I never recall coming across this one. It was just one that I was unaware of. And even as later on, when I got into horror films, like more heavily and getting into the more hardcore stuff, or the more erotic stuff, I think I became aware of it, but I sort of just avoided it because I knew it was a full moon movie for a while. But then when I came around to buying it and actually watching it, when I started collecting full moons specifically, like real hard, uh, instantly kind of fell in love with it. It's a weird, atmospheric, like twisted take on the Beauty and the Beast thing that I think everyone should see at least once. As much as I love this movie, though, it isn't a very rewatchable full moon film, you know? Like, it's not one I find myself wanting to just pull out and watch for fun regularly. It's like a once every few years kind of visit, I think. This is only the third time I've ever seen Meridian when I watched it to do this. I do like it a lot, but, you know, it's very different. I've been saying for the last couple of weeks that it's the least full moon movie that they ever did as part of the main line of full moon movies. It really feels like it should have been released on some sub-label of Full Moon, but they hadn't really started doing that yet, so it just got slapped in with Puppet Master and Shadow Zone and Crash and Burn and like more normal Full Moon stuff, you know. So yeah, I don't know. Is it safe to say we all like the film though?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's safe to say. And I was just looking at Sherilyn Fenn's like filmography. She's been in quite a few things that I've seen over time. She's been in a version of Mice and Men, which that was an older one with Gary Sinise. She played the wife that ended up getting killed in there. So she also played in The Wraith, which if you know cars or sci-fi movies, that was a classic. And so on and so forth. Oh, and Zombie High. That's another one that she was in.
See, I think Twin Peaks is really I've seen The Wraith at one point, but it was a long time ago. Twin Peaks is just the thing that I knew her from when I saw her in Meridian. So I was like, well, shit, that slutty girl from Twin Peaks actually gets naked in this, you know?
But I happen to know her from a sci-fi film that's on her credentials as Crime Zone, which was part of like a 2-for double feature in 1988. It had David Carradine in it.
Well, there you go.
She was like a sexy dancer that kind of got was like the love interest or whatnot. She was a blonde in there instead of a brunette, so it's kind of interesting. But
well, since we're talking about characters and whatnot, let's go ahead and get a rundown here of the old tale of the tape, which is, you know, our little segment where we give you all the details about who's responsible for this madness that we're looking at tonight. So obviously it was directed by Charles Band, based on a screenplay by Dennis Powley, who did quite a few Full Moon movies with them, or at least a good handful. I believe him and Charles Band were partners for a little bit on other business ends of the filmmaking. It was done based on a story by Charles Band. It was produced by Charles Band and Deborah Dion once again. I believe she also produced Puppet Master. And I think maybe wasn't Charles married to her at one point? I don't know. Maybe I'm imagining that. It stars Sherilyn Fenn, Malcolm Jameson, Charlie Spradling, and Hilary Mason. Had cinematography by Mac Alberg, who shot a lot of Full Moon stuff back in the day as well. And it was edited by Ted Nicolau. It had music by Pino Donaggio, who also did, I believe, Tourist Trap and several other Full Moon flicks. It was distributed by Full Moon Features, obviously. I don't think this is one that got too much of a push from Paramount, but obviously you can see the logo on the poster there, so Paramount was a factor for sure. It has a release date of April 13th, 1990, a runtime of 85 minutes, and the budget is not available on there, but I imagine it was considerable because, you know, they're shooting in a big old castle overseas and they've got, you know, a whole traveling circus sideshow that they brought in there. And there's a fair amount of money that was definitely spent on those fucking wolf suits because they look amazing, as you can see even just in the poster art. So obviously the main visual feature of the film is the werewolf suits. So for lack of a better word, that's what the Beastman suits. There you go. So we'll talk about that before we dive into the characters, because what do you guys think about those Beastman suits?
For the time period, it wasn't too bad. I mean, they could have gone worse. I mean, they could have just gone around with just these masks of werewolves, and you could see the strings around the fucking mask. I've seen horror films with bunny man suits where it's just like this plastic bunny mask, and you can fucking see the band around their head or whatnot, you know, and just Jesus.
Right. I think they're pretty top tier, man. I want to say it's somebody like famous who did them and they were reused in something else. I'll pull up the IMDb so I can get the trivia again, but I remember reading that at some point. Because they're just solid Beastman suits, dude. You know, I like that they have the hunchback thing going on. I always think that that's like a weird element of like classic werewolf Beastmen where they've got the hump back, you know. There's just something about like that razorback wild hyena look to that shit that makes it extra menacing to me. I like that they're super hairy, but they've got like bald bits, you know.
So the costume for the Beast was the same one used in Francis Coppola's Bram Stoker's Dracula, altered slightly. Special makeup effects artist Greg Canham to avoid direction, as the costume was created for Dracula.
Right. You guys, I remember being stoked to be able to bring up a full moon movie when we did that Bram Stoker Dracula episode for Movies Galore. So that as soon as you said it, I remembered being like, yeah, it was actually in that weird wolf sex movie that Full Moon did, you know? So yeah, I mean, they were good enough that they were also in fucking Dracula, dude, which is, say what you will about the movie, you know, whether you love it or hate it, it's certainly a technical and visual marvel of the time, you know, and in terms of practical effects and everything, it's fucking top tier to this day, that 90s Dracula movie. So yeah, no complaints at all about the wolf suits. And I think that them engaging in weird tawdry sex with these girls that we know from other movies and shows, it's you know, like I said, I like that they're hairy and they've got like balder bits, you know, so you could see like skin under it. That's always creepy with like beastmen and wolfmen when you can see like their hide down there under the hairs and whatnot. And I think that they're beast-like enough to be, you know, scary, but not too beast-like to be totally unbelievable, you know? Like it feels like something a person could actually turn into, I guess, and then turn back without it killing them or something. Whereas, you know, more abstract werewolf forms or beastmen forms, it kind of stretches the suspension of disbelief a little bit to believe that someone could morph into that and then survive turning back, you know, bones breaking in crazy directions.
I also like how underneath all of this other stuff that's going on, there's also kind of a little bit of a ghost story going on too. One that you don't know is a ghost until, like, you know, almost the last fucking minute, you know.
Well, I mean, if you've seen these sort of ghost movies, you pick up on it pretty quick. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I fluctuate back and forth between thinking the ghost story element of Meridian is rad and then also thinking it's kind of dumb. I mean, it depends on the mood I'm in when I'm watching the movie, I guess. Okay. Before we jump into that, though, let's talk a little bit about the rest of our cast here, because really when it comes down to it, you've just got your two main chicks. You got, you know, Sherilyn Fenn playing Catherine Bornazzini or whatever the fuck, the heiress to this castle that they're hanging out in. And then you've got Charlie Spradling, who plays Gina, who's like her best friend, right? And then you've got Alex Daniels in the role of the Beast. Phil Fondacaro is the circus dwarf. And then just, a couple other people that play like various characters in the film. Hilary Mason, who plays, I think, the housekeeper of the house. She's like an old character actress who was in a bunch of movies back in the day. So if you're a fan of any of that stuff, you might recognize her. I didn't recognize her, but I do think that she gives a pretty good performance in the movie. She's kind of the backbone of the storytelling in it in a lot of ways, because arguably Sherilyn Fenn's there as eye candy, and Charlie Spradling is kind of playing second fiddle to her in the same category, and that's not being sexist. That's just a genuine observation of the way the movie is. The general plot of this, which we'll get into here soon, is pretty straightforward and kind of maybe problematic by certain people's views, but it works for what the movie is. What do you guys think of our two main ladies, though? Sherilyn Fenn. I mean, what do you think of her as a character?
Well, Sherilyn Fenn, doesn't she? She plays the girl who is basically the
main chick.
Yeah, the main chick. She evidently is from a long line of like aristocracy of some sort, and she was going to school for some kind of art degree, and she came back home to focus on some of her art stuff, but she ended up like inviting her roommate / party girlfriend along for the ride, and of course in the background there is a traveling troubadour carnival that is gaining notice outside the grounds of her family estate, and the film goes from there. So
she's fine. She's your average rich chick. There's not a whole lot compelling about her in the movie, to be honest. I mean, she kind of just moves in to inherit this castle and gets swept up in the plot of the film, that's it. There turns out to be a ghost story and other twists and turns along the way, but her as a character, she's just kind of reacting to the movie as it unfolds around her. I think Charlie Spradling is a little bit more interesting of a character in the film. She's kind of playing the chick that's like an art restorationist or whatever, and doing her thing there. She really just comes to have a good time with an old friend of hers who happens to be this rich heiress to this, this old castle or whatever. And I think, honestly, she gives a better performance in the movie than Sherilyn Fenn, especially in the whole post-roofing situation and the aftermath in that. Charlie Spradling's just a treat. She shows up in a couple other Full Moon movies. We'll be talking about her and her sweet tits, if I remember correctly, in Puppet Master 2 coming up later on in the month. And then she's also in Bad Channels. Sadly, was not able to cross over into Dollman versus Demonic Toys as it was originally intended. But yeah, Charlie Spradling's just great, man. I think that in a perfect universe, I might have swapped their roles so that we could have had Charlie Spradling as the main chick in the movie and Sherilyn Fenn as the friend, But I guess, that also might make Charlie's performance in that role, it might, maybe her being the sidekick is kind of what makes it appealing and sort of gives it a little bit of character. Sherilyn Fenn as the sidekick would have just seemed pointless, like she was plugged in there for boobs. So I think they maybe made the right choice. They obviously knew they knew what they were doing. I just really like Charlie Spradling. I think that she's an unsung scream queen in a lot of ways.
Okay. What do you think, Mason?
Yeah, what are your thoughts on the girls?
Mostly the girls. I found them pretty decent. Like I said like Charlie Spradling is sort of like kind of a full moon, especially when we get to Puppet Master 2. In a way, they kind of the war, like the one best friend, and the one girl that was actually seen as just the target to our main antagonist, yet key to freeing the basically our main monster from the curse that he's put upon.
And I suppose they're kind of like the two girls that end up being like almost like the Two-Face girls, from like DC universe, where Two-Face has the nice girl in white, and he's got the bad girl in black, So
yeah. I mean, it's all pretty safe, Charlie Spradling is the bad girl in that she wears a strange jacket and isn't rich, which I guess makes her, you know what I mean, like a street person or something, probably to people that live in castles, right? But she's actually like an art major who's restoring fucking priceless paintings and shit like that. Like, she's pretty classy herself. She's the classiest bad girl sidekick ever. I don't know. And Sherilyn Fenn, I mean, we can't go without stating that there is a special quality about that lady's beauty. She's like that, what you might call a classic beauty or whatever. She looks like she came from like the Marilyn Monroe era of women, but for some reason existed in the 80s and 90s for our viewing pleasure, She doesn't look like your average, horror movie chick, I guess, which is what makes her stand out in pretty much everything that she does, right? Like, do you get what I mean? She's got kind of that, 50s or 60s, like old school Hollywood starlet look to her.
Right.
Which I think is also pretty sick in that it adds like a little bit of that classic monster movie vibe to this shit that it wouldn't have otherwise, right? Because they're clearly going for some old school gothic horror, like almost Universal Monsters type stuff with this at the same time as anything else. And I think just Sherilyn Fenn's whole look and vibe do add to that, So whatever she lacks in being like a fully fleshed out, interesting character in this movie, she makes up for in bringing those classic vibes to it, I think. Because this is sort of simultaneously like a real old school gothic horror monster flick and like a modern piece of 90s smut, sort of rolled into one with a ghost story tacked on in there. What do we think about what's his ass? Alex Daniels, the guy that plays our Beast Brothers or whatever.
Quite was it kind of like found like the kid, like basically the main beast, but it's interesting because, like I said about the whole comparison between the beauty and the beast storyline, in a way, like the difference being like the beast is actually treated as sort of like a werewolf transformation, like it comes out like on a few occasions, but most of the time he's basically it's still a man. It's just that this creature kind of comes out whenever it feels like, so
right.
So it's kind of differentiates from the usual kind of storyline. In a way, I kind of found it interesting, like how the two brothers basically see the child. In a way, they look similar, but in a way, the mannerisms are like in a way they kind of. I feel like they kind of like play like a sort of twist, like the one whose curse is seen as like the true monster, only for the twist to be the one who isn't turned to a monster. It's a true villain.
Yeah, which is such that it really was effective on me the first time I watched this. I was like, yo, what the fuck? This guy's evil? Like, I thought the whole time it was going to be the scumbag brother that was the real problem, but nope. And really, you got to give old Alex Daniels credit. He is doing a successful job of playing two very different characters in the movie.
Yeah.
What do you think, Dave?
I think he pretty much, served his purpose. I mean, you didn't really see him as much in the human form of the other, the other brother, as much as I thought that you would be able to see him, but I do think it was a very cool representation of the old switcheroo. You know,
Yeah.
the fact that they were invited to the estate. You know, they drugged the girls, and then in the night things happened. You know, things that go
Well,
bump in
we're about to get there. I also do like that he has like old soap star look to him. You know, like he looks like a dude you would see on a soap opera. And maybe he probably was in some. But he just gives the movie like an extra sleaze vibe to it, just based on that.
He's been in films like Victor and Victoria, The Last Days of Pompeii, The Scarlet Pimpernel. So
Well, there you go. Bunch of crap that I probably never watched and probably likely wouldn't. But you know, there is a certain soap vibe to him. Am I totally wrong in seeing that? Like he looks like a dude you would see on Days of Our Lives or something like that. And the movie itself kind of does have this weird, maybe it's the music too. It's got that sort of dreamy daytime soap opera vibe to it, a little bit interwoven into its DNA, I think. I don't know if that's what that's a symptom of, but it's definitely there, at least for me. I guess our last character we really need to talk about is old Phil Fondacaro in there. He's just listed simply as the circus dwarf, at least on Wikipedia. But man, is he slimy in this movie. Phil usually plays somewhat charming characters when you think about it in these films, but this is his time that he was really allowed to like come totally unleashed and be disgusting. And he had fun doing it, you can tell. I don't know. What do you guys think of Phil in this movie?
Yeah, like.
Go ahead.
Like you said, like Phil is so like what, so like the full moon dwarf actor, as in a way like he's been in Ghoulies 2, Troll. He actually played like I don't know if you guys know this, but I think he actually played the main troll Torque in the film. That and the other.
I think
he also played Onkar in Willow. So.
Well, we don't talk about Willow when we're talking about Phil because he's the better dwarf. Okay. He was also in Sideshow, if memory serves, which is one of his better performances. Later 90s full moon flick, but kind of an unsung gem in the library, I think.
And he was also in Blood Dolls, playing as like the.
He is in Blood Dolls, yeah.
He was also in Ewok.
He's also in fucking Doll Man versus Demonic Toys, isn't he? He has like that big ass gun. Phil's in so many good roles. But what were you getting at with that, Mason? He's kind of like, I think you were going in the same sort of direction, where it's like he's kind of usually a little more charming. He's not quite as sleazy.
Yeah, like in the past few roles, like aside from how when he played Torque and Troll, he plays as like the charming like nice guy. Though here he's kind of sort of like the main henchman to our main antagonist in a way, because like he helped keep his brother turned beast in line.
And he's literally the one that roofies the girls. Yeah. He's like whipping the one brother. He's clearly like getting off on being sadistic as hell. Obviously, Phil's a super chill dude in real life, but it is a treat to see him play like an actual villain for a change. You know what else he's in is The Creeps. He plays Tiny Dracula in that. Another one of Phil's best roles, in my opinion. Seeing him as Dracula is oddly epic, you know. Just goes to show that good things do come in small packages a lot of the time. And that's kind of it for our characters. You know, Dave already kind of nailed down some of the key elements of the plot, but basically this rich girl has came back to the family castle, as one does, because she's inheriting it or whatever. I think she's finally of age, or I don't know what the hell's going on. She's coming back to take the estate. And her friend from college basically comes with her. Just to kind of like have a fun trip. I think it's their semester break or whatever. So the friend's like, oh, why not? I'll come hang out with you in this fucking castle and see the sights and do whatever. One day, a traveling carnival just shows up, which is just how I imagine Europe works, you know? Like sometimes there's just gypsies or traveling carnivals. I don't know if that's reality, but I sure hope so. Because I want to get involved in some of those werewolf curses and fucking sideshows and everything. It seems like they have a good time. But the carnival shows up, and there's some real wild stuff going on in this carnival. I think they kill an actual live snake at one point in it, which is kind of a bummer. But you know, it's just your, I guess, standard sideshow. You got the strong man, you got people doing dangerous acts with various sharp objects, you know, all this sort of shit. Random dwarf guy going around hyping people up and cracking a whip or something. And these girls are all about it. And I guess really the main dude, our beast man, zeroes in on Sherilyn Fenn's character because she's pretty hot, you know. So they kind of target her and they wanna fuck around with her. She's not super interested at first, but the Charlie Spradling character is like, yeah, let's party with these guys. It'll be weird and fun. And I respect her, you know, spirit. She's definitely down for some festivities. It just turns out those festivities were a little bit more than they bargained for. I mean, the whole circus comes back to their castle to party with them, and they drink all sorts of wine and make a big giant mess. And then at some point in the night, Phil Fondacaro roofies those girls, and they have sweaty, gross fireside sex with the Beastmen. So let's just get the elephant in the room out of the way now. That sex scene is fucking horrendous, dude. But also oddly hot. I have no shame in saying that. It's one of those things that you feel like you shouldn't be watching, but you're not going to stop watching it. You're going to see it through to the end.
The moment where you're watching a horror movie and suddenly the sex scene comes on and your parents come in the back in behind you and be like, turn that shit off.
I was just going to go there. Meridian is one of those sex scenes you definitely would not want to get caught watching by a parent or relative, especially as a kid. You know? Can you imagine that shit? What are you doing in here? Like, this is not even a normal fucking sex scene for a horror film. Usually it's just like two teenagers banging in the woods and Jason kills them or something. But Beastman sex, we're going to have to limit what you rent at the video store. Like, that's crossed over into a different fucking genre altogether. I don't know. What are your thoughts on it, Mason? I'm dying to know.
Well, mostly because, like, in a way, like the scene, like in a way, like I said, it's kind of pretty dark. Like the girl gets roofied with it's like, and the one main girl gets raped though. In a way, it's kind of like a weird way, sort of like this, of having that be sort of like this thought between the woman, in a way, because the woman basically was having sex without her consent in a way.
Oh yeah, not in a way, just period. It's like that Bill Cosby moment without people coming up to the door and knocking all the statues down because of it. Yeah, it's I think that's what makes it so sleazy too. Is it really is played like she gets into it at one point. But she's getting into it in that way that like a half asleep person would get into something like that, you know. Not to get into too many icky details, but yeah, you totally you don't even need them to be drunk or roofied. You could like fondle a sleeping person, and you're still violating the fuck out of them, right? Like because they're not fully conscious, they're not consenting to it. In their mind, it's like some dreamlike thing where maybe they do seem like they're into it, but not really because they're not awake, you fucking creep. And that's what's going on fully throughout the whole sex scene in this movie. And the problem is the girls are so fucking hot that you can't help but enjoy what you're seeing because it's Charlie Spradling and Sherilyn fucking Fenn naked, fully frontal naked for the world to fucking see, man. Beastmen groping on their boobies and stuff. I like it, but it makes my skin crawl. And those are those things that you often, I don't think most people experience those unless they watch horror films on a regular basis. There's that part of me that feels guilty for liking it, but then there's that part of me that's like,
why wouldn't I like that? You know, have you looked at those women? I mean, Jesus. And I think it's tastefully done too. You know, it's not overly rough or rapey feeling. I mean, which just adds to it being even more rapey. But it's, you know, it's not like he's in there clapping those cheeks Beastman style or something. It's like a tastefully done, passionate love scene that just happens to have sinister implications, which I think is the way to play it. You know, if it was like some gross fuck scene or whatever, that would make the movie feel weird and even more uncomfortable than it is. You know, and the fireside part of it, you know, am I wrong or am I imagining that? Is that just something I'm overlaying with my subconscious brain, or is there not like a fireplace going?
There is a fireplace going, so they're trying
Yeah,
to make the rape romantic a little bit, but it's really not.
but it is at the same time. Like, that's the thing. It's a
It is at the
confusing
same
scene.
time. It's like that unwarranted romantic erotic
Mhm.
moment where you just want to whip it out, but you know
But
it's
you
not.
know what's happening is way too fucked up to do that too. Yeah. So it's like it's masterfully done, and I'm sure every bit of that is 100% intentional. It's meant to be sultry and, you know, kind of steamy, but also very, very wrong. Um, and to be fair, a lot is made, even when I'm joking about Meridian, about the beast sex part of it, but it really is kind of a relatively small element of the movie. It's like that scene, right? And then the rest of the movie is about the unraveling of this ghost story and the story behind the two brothers. Um, I'm sure one of you guys can word it more eloquently than I can, but what is the basic gimmick between the brothers? Are they like mythological characters that have sort of been pitted against each other, and the one brother was like kind of held captive by the dominant brother?
Yeah,
What's the gimmick there, Mason? Lay it out for us.
I've been thinking along the lines of basically the two are cursed, like I guess in a way like being more like this the one brother who wants to get out of the curse, but the other he doesn't. So that's kind of like in the way the brother had up for like formal lovers, but he ends up killing him just to keep the curse going, like to stay mortal till, and he kind of sees this one girl as like the true key. So
Sorry, bro. I had to let my dog out, and I got something in my eye. But no, that's right. Pretty much what he said. It's sort of left a little bit vague in the movie. You know, it's not. They don't super lay out the whole mythology to you. They
well,
give you
no,
the basic premise of it, and then you're kind of left to imply certain things, and then watch the whole ghost story element of it unravel.
well,
Good.
and isn't there a painting that is in a church that they find it like buried somewhere where I think it's the party girl who is actually
She's
uncovering.
restoring it, yeah,
Yeah,
and it
she's
reveals
restoring it.
like the
They
whole.
find, yeah. So
Uh,
that's part of the element too.
And doesn't it turn out that like some ancestor of hers was also like raped by these beastmen?
There were actually 4 ancestors that were raped by this beast, and it ended up being, you know, something that uh, you know, I guess each ancestor learned something different each time. I guess, and
I bet they
um,
did. So,
it just
you
so
know, if
happened
the
that these
movie's
girls
not
happened upon the
sleazy
truth. You
enough
know,
already, like the movie's already that sleazy, they throw in like an vaguely incestuous element to it too, that it's like been going on, uh, which is pretty
which
gross. I don't know.
honestly, you know, in the '90s. There was a lot of that going on in novels too. I mean, especially with like Flowers in the Attic type thing, you know. So VC Andrews was huge on the incest.
This comes right back around to our Matrosha discussion too, where in that first short, that guy's like, "You just pissed on my sister wife's grave." Like, it's my sister wife, man. Apparently that was widespread in the 90s or something. I don't know. I didn't know about the
Better
90s
get
incest films, but
up to the top of a tower to defend your sister's honor. You might be a redneck.
yeah, or a beast man coming through the walls in the night. What the fuck, man? That being said, there is some really cool like set effects in this movie and some really cool sets in general. If I remember right, the place that's like the Garden of Statues in Meridian is an actual place that you can just
Yes.
go visit. It's like a normal tourist attraction over there.
Yes,
The
I was
castle
trying to
also
figure it out.
obviously exists. Now, is the castle? I'm always confused on this one. Is the castle the same one from Blood or Subspecies? And is it Charlie's castle or is it a castle they were shooting in? I always get confused. And honestly, castles don't look that different to me. So, do you know, Mason, if it's the castle that they shot a bunch of those movies in or if it's just a castle? I want to say at least Pit and the Pendulum was shot in this one.
Yeah, I think it might be like, I'm pretty sure like Pin and Pendulum is like the same castle as some of a lot of the other castle themed movies were filmed in. Per se.
I don't
was
think it's
trying
the
to
same
look up,
castle that
like-
they shot like Hideous in later
No,
or whatever. I think
Castle
that's a
Freak.
different set that they built. Castle Freak might be in that one.
I know
as well.
this was filmed. Yeah, I know this was filmed in Italy.
Yeah, and I feel like that's where Charlie owned his castle for a while, which is such a cocaine-fueled 90s B-movie producer thing to do. Like, I own a castle. But also, didn't he have like a house where there was like a gothic bar as soon as he walked in the front door? So there was definitely some strange things going on in the Charlie Band camp back then, like just some excess living when he had that Paramount money. I'm glad that they had this castle or the castles that they had access to because it's made the whole fucking vibe of a lot of classic full moon movies. And it's a shame that they don't have a castle like that nowadays. I think their castle nowadays is a house in Ohio that they're using to shoot some pretty cool stuff. Am I wrong about that, Mason? Isn't that what they're doing? Like the baby oopsie house they've been
like
using
the Full Moon Manor. That's what it's called.
Mm.
Called the kind of plan. That's basically where the film like some.
And hey, dude, props to Charlie. You know, he had a castle in the 90s and he still has a manor to this day. That's more than a lot of these dudes have. I don't know about if there's a trauma manor anywhere.
Like one of these days, like I know like Ohio's not like a few hours drive from where I'm from, so I know where I kind of like hope to one day I get to go to Ohio just to like see that man.
It'd be cool, dude.
And
When that's kind of where I got like a lot of hope for the modern full moon stuff was when I saw they were to that point again where they were buying like a location to shoot movies in, and everything that they've done with it has been pretty fucking cool. So, if anything, on a B movie level, it's even more iconic than the castles that they used back in the day when they had like millions of dollars to do this stuff with. I guess, you know, since we're touching on the sets and effects, do you guys have anything else in terms of effects or sets that you remember from the film? I think one of the most iconic shots in Meridian is the whole freak show cast walking out of that big mouth statue. And that's really just them walking around in that tourist attraction that we were talking about. But man, does that whole shot like really just for some reason just give me the shivers, you know?
Yeah, I feel like that in a way it's sort of like the most like contract, just kind of that's so whimsical yet not much that eerie feel with just these freaks. They come out of this weird portal. It's almost like they come from like another realm like like a sort of another like ghost realm of soul. So it's like they're not.
This is one of those movies, kind of, right? Like where at the end it turns out everyone was ghosts all along. What's some other ones that do that? 2000 Maniacs, which we're going to be covering on Schlockaholics in the near future. That's got that everyone was ghosts at the end ending. The Others, obviously, is the, you know, put it down, flip it, and reverse it version of that, where there were ghosts the whole time and the other people were alive, but, you know, still kind of the same thing.
Okay.
The Sixth Sense
So-
has to be mentioned in movies where motherfuckers were ghosts the whole time at the end of it. What's that, Dave?
So that that stone stuff that's in the movie, it is actually called the Monsters of Bomarzo.
There you go.
And evidently, it's a garden that's in Italy. I guess it's in Madonna della Valle Bomarzo. It is
Beautiful pronunciation.
Park of Monsters, the Parco dei Mostri. In the Garden of Bomarzo was not meant to be pretty. It was commissioned in 1552 by Prince Pier Francesco Orsini. It was an expression of grief designed to shock. So, I guess
It works. I mean, but it is oddly beautiful at the same time as being scary. You know, I could, in good faith, go on record as saying it's one of the coolest. I don't know if you call it a natural movie set, but sort of. You know what I mean? Where it's like not a location that was built for the movie, but they just were able to shoot there. It's one of the coolest ones I've ever seen, like in any movie, full moon or otherwise. I mean, it's just glorious. It was meant to be that they were going to shoot this movie there at that time. You know.
So perhaps the most frightening piece in the garden is an enormous head, mouth open wide in a scream. The accompanying inscription reads, "All reason departs."
Right. And there you go. I mean, they're even plugging the Meridian mouth on like the information just for the place in general. So they chose wisely. I'm a big fan of the cracking open walls and stuff. Maybe it's like residual effects from watching Hellraiser so much as a lad, but I just love a good wall cracking, you know, when you bust that bitch open and something weird comes out of it, you know. It's just something about it, man. I don't know. That's really kind of it as far as the effects go. Is there anything that we're missing, Mason?
Not that I really know. No. I think it was like one note. It's the fact that in a way, like the first four set of movies, it seems like they're kind of trying to like experiment with different kinds of genres. We have the typical horror from with Puppet Master, then we have like this dark dramatic romance with Meridian, and later on we're kind of going to the sci-fi era sort of genre with both Shadow Zone and Crash and Burn.
Well, with Crash.
Yeah,
and
they
Burn,
really cast a wide net at the beginning. What's that, Dave?
With mentioning Crash and Burn, you can also probably mention Robot Jocks as well in that whole sci-fi thing.
You could. They tried to sell it as Robot Jocks 2 to certain countries. Right. That's dirty pool in my opinion, because there's really like 2 minutes of giant robot action in the whole movie. If anything, it could be looked at as existing in the same universe as Robot Jocks, but calling it a sequel is a bit much. And arguably the movie would work fine without any of the giant robot stuff. So I guess now's a good time to talk about the music. What do you guys think about the score for this in general?
First, I kind of like the music. Kind of gets a sort of like eerie, sort of dramatic moment. Like it's not trying to be too scared, but kind of keeps sort of like a dramatic yet mysterious tone to which I felt that kind of fits the movie in a.
Oh yeah, I can see that. It got it knows when to be spooky, it knows when to be sleazy, it knows when to be kind of thoughtful or whimsical or whatever. It adds a lot to that fairy tale vibe that the movie has.
It does.
It very much gives it that 80s goth like fairy tale feel. Almost any of the synth lines in the soundtrack could easily be like intros to Typo Negative songs or something. It just reeks of like just late 80s, early 90s gothy vibes, you know, people smoking clove cigarettes and wishing they were dead. I don't know what goths do, but I like it. Pino Donaggio did the score for this. This was his second full moon movie, I think. But let's confirm this. He did Tourist Trap, which actually wasn't a full moon movie, but it was a Charlie Band movie back in the 70s. He did The Howling. That's his other notable thing after that. He did Beyond the Door. He did, let's see down here. There's got to be better ones. We're not even, Crawl Space, which was an Empire flick. He did, let's see here. We're just going to skim through here and hit the high points. Catacombs from 1988 is another one he did. 88 was a banner year for him, apparently. Then he did Meridian. He did Two Evil Eyes for George Romero and Dario Argento. And I feel like he did at least one or two other full moon movies. Oh, Oblivion. He worked on that one as well. And it looks like that's kind of it, other than Oblivion 2 Backlash, which arguably was probably the same score. So for at least through the 90s, he didn't do any more full moon stuff. But that's some pretty decent stuff on his resume there, you know. Tourist Trap alone is another one of the best horror soundtracks ever. So one I believe I also own on compact disc from Full Moon, if I remember right. So, Meridian soundtrack as well. I mean, it's worth owning as just a soundtrack, let alone a film. So I don't know. Any other notes on the soundtrack there?
Not that I know of.
What do you guys think about the way the movie's shot in general, the cinematography and all that?
Personally, I feel like the cinematography is pretty good. Like the use of lighting and smoke. I find interesting. Kind of keeping that sort of like, and like the red, say with the red light, kind of go. It's almost like it's that sort of demonic in a way.
Yeah. I also really, again, got to touch back on that like subtle touch of having the fireplace burning. I guess it's not subtle, but you know what I mean? Like stuff like that. Yeah, they know how to make the lighting and the ambient sort of visual atmosphere of the sets with the steam and different things like that, or the fog or whatever. It works really well throughout the whole thing. The movie definitely has a distinct visual style to it. And I think there are parts of it that do almost feel like you're watching an episode of Twin Peaks, or like you're watching a soap opera simultaneously when you're watching it visually, you know. And I don't know, again, if that's a symptom of them shooting fast and cheap, but also trying to do the best that they could. I think it's some of Mac Alberg's finest work, you know. He's a dude that deserves to be highlighted as well. As I said, he did several full moon movies. I've heard Charlie Band, I believe, go on record as saying, not even just him, too, other stars that they've worked with, of saying that Mac was like a go-to cinematographer, the type of dude that you would hire if you really wanted to, you know, have a good job done with the shooting of your film. He definitely did, you know, Reanimator, From Beyond, and Dolls. Looks like we're going to have to check him out on the old IMDb. You want to fucking flip through that for me, Dave? Your internet's probably working better than mine. But Mac Alberg definitely deserves his dues. I think there's like a flawless smoothness to the way that Meridian is shot, too. I've watched the movie at least 3 times, like I said, and I've never noticed any portion where it feels like there was a shot just thrown together. Like there, you know, everything feels like a lot of time was taken in setting it up and shooting it in this smooth, like almost dreamlike, elegant way that really adds to the movie with everything else that they're putting in it to create these vibes. I mean, the cinematography, you can't often say this for a full moon movie, but the cinematography is as much of a part of it as anything else, you know. So you got that Mac Alberg over there, Dave? That's Alberg. Mac, like Big Mac, and then Alberg, like AHL Berg.
Okay.
Again, apologies, folks. We
Matt.
got the music festival going on. I don't have good internet.
Looking backwards at his cinematography. So he's been around since 1959. He's German. So a lot of his. Oh, so he's worked with Ingmar Bergman before. I don't know.
Well, there you go.
You've heard of him. I guess he worked with him on something called Ingmar Bergman Makes a Movie, which sounds like a documentary. Let's see, but let's go forward. Let's see. Okay, so he worked on Fanny Hill in 1968, Nocturnal in 1979. Oh, okay. So he was a director of photography in the movie Hell Night in 1981. Let's see. Oh, okay. So the first full moon feature that he was in was actually the first full moon feature that I actually knew of and watched, which was Parasite, which was an Alien knockoff.
Still haven't seen Parasite.
And
I really need to. It looks sick.
Also, if I remember correctly, that was Jennifer Connelly's first role. Oh no, not Jennifer Connelly. Demi Moore. Demi Moore's first role ever was in Parasite. So,
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Very early full moon movie. So let's see, what's next here.
I remember seeing like a Demi Moore photo in, is it an issue of Delirium or something?
Let's see. And he also worked on sexploitation film Chained Heat. The second full moon feature he did was Metal Storm.
There you go.
That was an early Metal Storm, the destruction of Jared, whatever. Then the Dungeon
Jared
Master.
Sin, I think, is what it's called.
Yeah, Jared Sin.
Yep, Jared Sin. Ghoulies, Trancers, Reanimator, House, Eliminators, From Beyond, Dolls, House 2, Prison, Ghost Town, Trancers, City of Lost Angels, Deep Star 6.
Classic.
So, House 3, The Horror Show, Arena, which he worked on 17 episodes of The Wonder Years.
Did he shoot Seed People?
Robot Jocks.
Yeah.
Photography for that, and Crash and Burn. See, going on. He was the cinematographer for the music video for Michael Jackson's Black or White.
There you go.
Innocent Blood, a vampire movie. My Boyfriend's Back. From 1993, another vampire movie, if I remember correct.
Hey, how's it going,
Beverly
Michael?
Hills Cop 3, The Brady Bunch movie. A very Brady sequel, Space Truckers, Good Burger.
Good Burger is a weird one, for sure.
Ragdoll, Horror Vision, Groom Lake, which is kind of Groom Lake is kind of an interest. That one's in a spin-off company of Full Moon. I think it was called Dark something. It didn't last long. It was a very.
I think it was called Shadow Entertainment.
Yeah, Shadow Entertainment. There we go. Because I got 2 copies of Groom Lake in my collection.
I've heard of it, and there's that William Shatner presents Groom Lake thing, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it goes
King of the Ants.
I mean, I think it goes without saying.
The Legacy, the Legacy, which, if you know anything about the Puppet Master, you could technically watch The Legacy and then move on from there, because that's kind of like a greatest hits.
What you just said is blasphemy, sir. Blasphemy.
Petrified.
Legacy is not
Evil
allowed.
Bong. I know. I'm just saying it's a
You
greatest
watch
hits.
those
Technically,
fucking
you can skip
movies.
like the first.
I
I
will not
watched
allow it, Dave.
the movies before
I will
that.
not allow it. I've thrown
But
on Legacy maybe
Evil
twice in my life just to have background
Evil
Puppet
Bong
Master
and then the
movies.
Evil Clergyman are the last in his repertoire.
So, I mean, again, it goes without saying, Mac Alberg, legendary cinematographer. He's worked with Charles Band a ton, obviously. He's stayed loyal to that guy from like the 70s until now, which is pretty insane. But he also worked with a ton of other people. You know, he's being hired by all these other fucking horror directors and sci-fi
Yeah,
directors
he's
to
a
shoot
hired
their
gun.
movies. He was being hired by Michael fucking Jackson to shoot a music video. Obviously,
That was a
Mac was
major
legit.
fucking song. I mean, that was a major song, like to kind of like, you know, show that there's no difference between skin colors. You know.
That was a big deal. The whole video had its whole controversies too. So Mac was behind shooting one of the most controversial, technically, videos of the time, you know, and a humongous deal, like you said, you know. The guy deserves his flowers, and he doesn't often get talked about outside of people that are like Full Moon or horror fans for being a dope cinematographer. But the guy really knows how to shoot a movie, and Meridian is testament to that for sure. Again, it's got this elegant, smooth quality to it that perfectly complements the sort of slow burn gothic sex horror shit that they're doing in this film. So yeah, that kind of does it in terms of all the technical aspects of the movie as well. I think we've broken it down pretty good. Obviously, it was edited by Ted Nicolau, which I think the editing does play a huge factor in this as well. Again, this is one of Full Moon's like least Full Moon movies. This is proper like atmospheric Euro horror, basically. It was a lot more meticulously crafted, I think, than a lot of Full Moon stuff. Let's put it that way.
And Ted Nicolau is a very good editor, as
Oh,
well
yeah.
as a director. In fact, we're going to be talking about one of Ted Nicolau's found footage films come this Monday called The St. Francisville Experiment. So
Right on. Yeah, that's true. A lot of Full Moon going around this weekend. Yeah,
But-
Ted's great. I mean, and you know, even at this point, Ted had been working with Charlie in you know his movies since the 70s. I think he edited Tourist Trap. So, you know, at least since Tourist Trap, he was on board with these guys. I don't think Charlie gave him his first opportunity to direct until Terror Vision, which actually I think predated Meridian.
Actually, I think he was one of the main directors for The Dungeon Master. I know that film had like other directors.
Right, but yeah, his first like standalone feature film, I think, was Terror Vision, if memory serves, and then which he basically kind of like revisited with Bad Channels, which is super cool. So Ted will be making frequent appearances on here. I think our first Ted movie is going to be Subspecies, which is sometime in November, I think. I don't know. I'd have to look at our schedule again. It's not too far off. I mean, after this, obviously, we've got Shadow Zone, which is going to be next Saturday, obviously. Then we've got Crash and Burn the following Saturday, and closing out the October season, we have Puppet Master 2, which I believe is going down on the 28th of October. I guess we might as well have announced the November lineup, or November into December, however it ends up working out. But you know, the 4 weeks after that, it's going to be Doll Man, Pit and the Pendulum, Puppet Master 3, and then I think Subspecies is like right at the end of November. So we're going to be to a Ted movie in that many episodes, you know.
Okay.
Lots of good stuff, you know. Arguably, this might be the finest stretch of like back-to-back fucking bangers in the entire Full Moon catalog, you know.
Well,
after
I
this,
would
we
love to
start
be
getting
on
some movies that aren't as
Subspecies.
great. You know. What's that?
I would love to be on for the Subspecies ones.
Oh yeah. Well, save the date, man. I'll keep putting that schedule out there regularly so you guys know exactly when the discussions are going down and all that stuff, and we'll get it going. yeah, so I don't know. Of those discussions, do you guys have one that you're most excited about in the next batch? We obviously have these to close out the month. I think Puppet Master 2 is going to be the obvious odds-on fan favorite, but I think that the Shadow Zone and Crash and Burn discussions are going to be notable as well.
Well, personally, for me, I think both Puppet Master 1 and 2 are like my most anticipated for me.
Nice.
Because yeah.
Obvious reasons. Yeah, Puppet Master rules. What about you, Dave?
I think that the Puppet Master ones are definitely ones to, because each one of them adds a bit to like the levels and dimensions that are in the multiverse that Full Moon began, because that's kind of where their Marvel Universe version of monsters and creepazoids came into, which creepazoids is another Full Moon, if I remember correctly, but it has nothing to do with the multiverse.
It is. Yeah, no, with those Puppet Master ones add a little bit to the overall Full Moon lore. That was
just like the Dark Tower series is a fulcrum to the Stephen King universe. This Puppet Master series is the fulcrum to the Full Moon franchise to me. I feel like, even though there's earlier ones from Empire Pictures going forwards, I believe this is where they started getting more hip.
Well, this is where they distilled it to a science. There was that part of me when I was going to launch this that was like, well, do we go all the way back to Charlie Band's first movie and start from there, or do we start with Full Moon, the shit that everybody actually identifies with? Yeah, we all found out about a lot of the Charlie Band stuff later, but we grew up on this shit. So especially this discussion here is, I think, it'd be one of our most viewed ones ever, because Puppet Master 3 is like the Friday the 13th 4 of this franchise. Like, it's most people's favorite movie, so we'll probably get some fun guests for that, and hopefully the viewership on it will be pretty good, because it's going to be a fun discussion. It's going to kind of be the culmination of that first glory era of Full Moon in a lot of ways. Like that, and then Subspecies right afterwards. That's right there to me is that original run of Full Moon movies, and then after that they started building off the stuff they did, and like I said, we got some movies that weren't as good as others, yada yada, but everything on this list, even down to stuff like Shadow Zone or Crash and Burn or Doll Man, Pit and the Pendulum, those are all absolute bangers and unique Full Moon movies in their own right. And then honestly, after the Subspecies, and they'd established Puppet Master, and then they kicked off Subspecies, and we went right into like sequels bill, and still some great movies that came out in the preceding years, lots of good ones. But we got them really kind of like leaning in on the stuff that they were doing that was already working. This first run up to Subspecies is like that perfect opening stretch of films for a studio like Full Moon, and I think it's glorious. If you look at what we have after that, let me bring it up real quick. Like, if you look at the full list, right after that is kind of, we go into Netherworld, and then you get Demonic Toys, Seed People, Bad Channels, Dr. Mordred, Trancers 3, Trancers 1 and 2 we're going to be doing right after Subspecies, but yeah, I mean, it's it's kind of Full Moon expanding on what they built in this first run, if you think about it, and then other Empire stuff that they already had going beforehand. It's going to be fun to get to, but yeah, I don't know. I think of the next three that we got going, Puppet Master 2 is obviously the one that I'm the most excited about. I like that movie a lot. I think it's, kind of unfairly overshadowed by Friday the 13th Part 4 or, Puppet Master 3. I think Puppet Master 2 is the most wicked of the Puppet Master movies. It's got a gross vibe to it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So that's been good.
Did we want to do like maybe some favorite scenes or anything?
Yeah. Let's bang out the favorite scenes. I gotta let the dog back in, but I can still hear you. You do yours first, Dave. Favorite, I guess, favorite scene, favorite character, favorite scene.
Okay. I think my my favorite scene or scenes, a lot of them have to do with the monster park, and I do think that when the actual painting was revealed, that scene where they actually save each other or whatnot in the end. And I guess I do kind of like that B-sex scene. I do. It's hard not to. It's so taboo-ish. You almost kind of have to appreciate it for what it is. Yeah. As far as scenes go, I mean, I do like the way the castle looks like on the inside. When she finds that secret passageway, I do like that. Other than that, well, what about you, Mason?
I actually feel like in a way like though my favorite parts are basically with the beast monster. My favorite scene might be, like you said, the painting reveal scene, like the sort of reveal, like there was another layer to that kind of reveals the creature.
Yeah.
And I think like my favorite character might be Phil Fondacar as the little wing leader.
I would agree with you. Phil is my favorite character in the movie. I mean, unless we're counting Charlie Spradling's tits. But I think that my favorite scene in the movie is also probably just the whole roofing sequence, because it's so terrifying. This evil little dwarf like laughing and then chucking the fucking pitcher into your mirror. And then you just wake up the next day and you're like, I think I fucked a werewolf. It's such a random sequence of events that it's absolutely terrifying to me. So yeah, that would be my favorite scene of the entire movie. And that kind of does it, dudes. This has been, Nocturnal Emissions, yet another episode. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. Get out there and check out Meridian if you haven't seen it in a while. It's available to stream on Tubi, as well as Full Moon Streaming, of course, and easily purchased through their website. We'll be back at you next week with Shadow Zone, and then Crash and Burn to follow. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for coming tonight, Dave. You are a welcome addition to this discussion.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming, Mason. It's always a pleasure to hang out with you.
Yeah, you too, man.
Cheers. Thanks for watching. We'll see you back here next time.